welcome to What the Heck's, your source for Warhammer Underworlds, and under $30 left in our pocket, but I can feel it. We're going to get it back in this next hand, guys. Let's do it. I'm your co-host, Davy, and with me I have my high-rolling co-hosts, Skyler and Brian. How are you guys?
Avoiding the gambling tables entirely.
Hey, I went positive. My wife is the one that ruined it. What's up, guys?
I might have dabbled a little bit, and in fact, I almost did because you guys were on the hunt for something. I think Saturday night, but my wife had a number of times said, and I was like, I'm not gonna gamble while I'm at Las Vegas, and she's like, I know you are. Somebody's gonna talk you into it, and then it was kind of like, who's gaming who there? Because then I was like, well, no. If you're so sure, then I'm definitely not going to, which may have been exactly what she was shooting for. So well played to Jess.
My favorite part was we were all just willing to spend some money to sit around a poker table. But when we all decided to go down to the poker tables, the house was like, yeah, the house has been losing at blackjack. So each hand is $25. And we're all like, yeesh. It's like you have a convention of nerds and the house starts losing money.
In case you couldn't pick it up from the chat here, our topic today is going to be our experience at the Las Vegas Open. We were going to have Phil on here to kind of MC it for us, but got a couple technical issues that we're going to sort out. For your context, we are recording on Sunday, the 28th of January. LVO has come and gone. We all got to see a preview of Zondara's Grave Robbers. I'm within 90% of the correct letters. What do you guys think?
I'm extremely hyped for it.
Yeah.
The theme looks awesome. We have the love interest trying to figure out how to reshape her cursed love back to a form that isn't wolf-like, and there are like 3 projects that she keeps resurrecting and testing on.
Yeah, I love it. Go ahead.
When they included salvage for power cards, I figured it was only a matter of time before we saw some sort of objective salvage mechanic, and it really seems thematic with their ability that you can salvage if a keyword locked to one of the specific love interests. If they're dead or out of action, then you can salvage their objective card. I wonder, because they're grave robbers, if we're also going to see the first objective cards that revolve around plunder.
Interesting. They have a cool mechanic where the zombies can move some of the feature tokens. I just am in general excited for the theme, mechanics, and models on this warband, which is kind of all 3 things. So we might have to have like a Michael Jackson Beat It style dance knife fight to figure out who gets to take lead on those guys. But we'll come to that when we get there.
I was thinking the same thing.
Before we jump into the main topic, we have a number of community shout outs, and that makes sense. We just came back from a great community weekend, I guess 1 week ago now. Gents, who wants to kick us off with something here?
Yeah, I'll jump in first with a shout out to Honza. So Honza is a Discord user, but the reason we're shouting him out today is because he's developed a Underworlds events global calendar. And so we're going to have that linked in the show notes. Figured coming from an event, we wanted to share out, how to best find events. And this, I think, is going to quickly become one of the best resources for finding events. He's established maintainers for different regions to make sure that this is indeed global. And there's, focus done by the maintainers, in each region to add the events specific to their region to make sure that this thing continues to be the resource that it's built to be, as well as mark out what types of events those are and whether or not they include a ticket to your Journey to Worlds.
Yeah. I wanted to shout out the Critical Focus channel. It's been something that's been chugging along with a particular project. They finally finished up I think they're current now. They've done the background, the lore behind all of the different seasons of Underworlds. It's something that we've talked about doing for quite a long time and just haven't found the time to slot it in. We kind of saw that gap in the content coverage, and those guys beat us to the punch. So that's pretty awesome. I think it's a really interesting background to the game, even if it isn't spotlighted all that often with us. So recommend checking that out. That's super cool.
Yeah, and then I'll shout out Shadeglass Reflections. Our local Alex noticed the lack of YouTube content for Underworlds, and he wanted to be one of the first in the space, or the current ones in the space. So wanted to shout him out. He's just getting started. He's got one episode, still figuring out exactly how he's going to go about it. But his second episode will be relevant to this episode because he is going to feature our pink slip match from LVO weekend with our Underworld Underground friends and Sleeks Bowl, who I played against in that match.
Yeah. That is a game that we haven't seen his footage yet. We saw it live and it was incredible. All I can say is that recommend you take some time to watch it. It was really fun to see. It was really fun to commentate on and all that sort of stuff. So that was a great experience with a great group of folks.
Yeah, he said the footage was pretty good, even though it is it was very ad hoc. So it's more of a backyard brawl, like Kimbo Slice type deal, not exactly a high production UFC match.
Yeah. There's one more I wanted to hit while we're talking about locals here, and that is we returned. So we were really excited while we were at LVO. We were gone for the Thursday night league night. We looked back and there were 11 people playing at league without us, which felt like a pretty awesome turnout when the core constituency of our group was off doing something else. So I did not expect to be even more wowed when we returned, and we had 22 players out on a Thursday, and that was incredible. I was kind of deep in an awesome game with Alex, and I remember looking up, and he mentioned that how many people there were. I was like, that can't be right, and like counted tables, and like, oh no, it's also that table and that table and that table. So. That was amazing, and just want to thank all our locals for making this such a big thing, especially you, Skyler, who has done a ton of work and a ton of coordination to make this a thing that people are excited to come out for on a weeknight. So
thanks. I'm just as hyped as everybody. My mind is absolutely blown right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I'm still riding that high.
It was great. It was so fun. And there's this enthusiasm. We've talked about this project. I've occasionally tried to make it happen with our leagues where I try to get every warband played. But now we have this like snowball rolling where a bunch of people are excited about it. And so I think we have, as of this week, we only need 14 other warbands to be played. And there's half the league to go. So we'll... I think we're finally going to do it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Breaking records all over the place.
It's been my personal goal to try to play a different warband every single game I play this league. So won't we'll see if I can maintain. It requires like reassembling decks every single week. But
I want to give Alex just a little more love before we jump away from the community shout out sections. So although he will be featuring our pink slip game, the channel focus is going to be primarily on retelling games, so doing game reenactments where the game is on display. So you're still getting to see what it's like playing Underworlds, but the focus is going to be less on the turn-to-turn gameplay and more given through the narrative of what's occurring throughout a game, as told by a nameless seer.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool and fresh like way to jump into the space and carve out a spot for himself. And like Brian said, one episode out already. He's still figuring out what he wants the shape of these episodes to look like. So he has a ton of notes on ways he wants to iterate and improve for the next episode. And he's been talking enthusiastically about what that's going to look like. So doubling down on that shout out for you, Alex.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is that LVO coverage is just starting to come out. As of the recording of this episode, we don't yet have the expected content from Underworld's Underground. I know they've already recorded an episode. It's not yet released. and Path to Glory, I know, are working an episode, which by the time you hear this is likely going to be out, but not guaranteed. I don't know exactly what their schedule is going to be, but recommend you listen. We're all going to be kind of bringing our own perspectives there. And what is out right now is that Spent Glory Fish Mode's got his blog. If you prefer to read about it, he's got written about his experience, and that was as usual a nice crisp read, quality content there. All right, let's talk LVO. You guys ready?
As ready as I'm gonna be. Let's do
this. So we're just gonna. It occurs to me, because we'll occasionally get this question on the Discord: is what is Adepticon or something like that? And so there is this tendency to assume that everybody knows about this sort of thing. So LVO, to put it in simple terms, is a wargaming tournament convention. It is really has been focused on Games Workshop games, although there are quite a few other things going on there as well. Saw any number of things like, the Privateer Press games and Marvel Crisis Protocol and Star Wars Shatterpoint, I want to say.
Yeah, Shatterpoint, Legion, Armada, all that.
All that stuff's there. Our part of it really focuses in on the Grand Clash. And this was going to be a 2-day Friday and Saturday event. And it was, in our case, I think there were 25 down to 24 players, which was a significant uptick from last year. Somewhere about double or so of I should actually know who showed up last year. Was it 7 or 8 last year, actually?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be triple the attendance, which was encouraging. Still small when you compare it to something like the 40K things, but there are a lot of people who are coming out who are doing it. Their individual communities were growing, and it was really fun to see all kinds of new faces out there. So that was cool. That was and then we had a Rivals event on Sunday, which we'll also touch on. If you listen to our previous episode, it was the Deer Diary, where everyone did their pre LVO thoughts. I recorded an intro and then passed it to Phil to edit so that I wouldn't have like inside scoop on what my compatriots were doing. And so then I listened to it after the fact, and listeners, I kind of don't care if you didn't like it. I liked it a lot. I really enjoyed listening. Obviously I do care if you what you think of it, but I think you can expect some more of that. That was it was really fun to get some of the perspectives from Alex and Jazz and that. And I think what it came to is that they're coming at it from a different angle than us, and I really like to try and get some of those ways of playing out there. The vast majority of players that play this game are not shooting to win a Grand Clash. They're playing in a more casual way, and it was really sweet to hear Jazz's excitement for it coming from kind of a different perspective than we do here. So, but if you listen to that, then you already know what we brought. And if you didn't, then we're going to run it down real quick for you. Skyler, can you let folks know what you brought?
Absolutely. Head crackers, fort crackers.
I believe that's how it's supposed to be said too. So I'm glad you're maintaining that.
For those who might not know, the pairing of Fearsome Fortress with Head Crackers Mad Mob that I have fallen in love with and continue to plant a flag with.
Yeah. Brian, what were you bringing?
I brought the Thrice Full Discord and Seismic Shock. Thought that was a good, safe pairing for them. Mm-hmm. But Thrice Full Discord, basically, when they came out, just had that was set. Like I was running those.
Yeah. I was also excited about them, but it felt too much for two of us to be doing it. So I kind of bopped around on some other things and ended up on Gore Chosen of Drum. And I had played through our last league, mostly doing them with Void Curse Thralls. And so when it came time to settle on something, I kind of panicked and went back to the thing that I was most familiar with, especially in the light of that recent errata. And I didn't know how different the meta was going to be. So I figured I might as well stick with what I knew. And that's what we were launching in there with. As a note, I've asked the other three members who did the pre-LVO diaries to record their post-event thoughts. And we'll be getting those out to you either as a standalone mini episode, or you may hear them as an addendum to this one, depending on when those come in. But you will get to hear about Jazz, Alex, and Bobby's experiences too. But it's us now. This was a 2-day event. On day one, we had 3 games, 3 matches, I should say. They're all best of 3. And then they would cut to the top 16 who would play on day 2. Some folks pointed out that a top 16 cut in a 24-person event is a pretty big cut, and I would agree. I think the tournament organizer, Chris, did an awesome job. He was really engaged, really upfront with how he was doing things, so no complaints there. And I think if he had to do again, he might make it a flexible cut. And then think of some sort of organized event on day 2 for the folks who don't make the top 8 or whatever you cut to. So that was going to be our day 1 on Friday. Was 3. Skyler, can you tell us a little bit about the faction breakdown?
Yeah, so was delighted with the amount of variety we had at the event. So we actually had 17 unique warbands represented. The duplicates ended up being 3 Crimson Court at the most represented, along with Grisel's Arenae. I never know how to pronounce Grisel. Grisale. There, see, getting it wrong in all corners of the word.
Or maybe it's like a Spanish double L, Grisella.
Oh boy! All right. Well, 3 of them as well. Hot off of their buff from the errata, so super cool. Especially to see that representation of what I consider to be gambling aggro at a Vegas event.
Fitting.
And then next up in duplicates, 2 ofs. We had Gore Chosen of Drum, Draper's Wraith Creepers, and Thricefold Discord. And then to round out the rest, all unique entries. And that's Cogger's Ravagers, Grincrack's Luton Court, Canaan's Reapers, Starblood Stalkers, Elethane's Soul Raid, Ephlem's Pandemonium, Spikeclaw's Swarm, you, sir, or ma'am, legend. Iron Soul's Condemners, The Cunning Crew, Headcracker's Mad Mob, Domiton Storm Coven, only a one-off, and Hexbane's Hunters. Notably, only a one-off of the Pandemonium in there as well.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we're all pleasantly surprised with the variety there. That was pretty great. It was to the point where I was like surprised when I noticed like, oh, there's more than one of this warband, you know? Was there any absences or inclusions here that really surprised you?
I'm always surprised to not see Aripas.
Yeah.
I was personally surprised to not see a Headsman's Curse. I almost brought them. And then I think I had actually, ironically, Jazz beat them with her Crimson Court. And I was like, I just don't quite have them figured out enough yet to bring them. So irony to follow later. But them, and then, yeah, I really would have expected to see some doubles of Hexbane, Domitan, or Pandemonium.
I definitely expected more Hexbanes, but also GSP, but that was flavoring from Worlds, but maybe the Worlds performance, it seemed like there was a lot of teching to counter Domitans and Ephlems, and that didn't work at Worlds. Domitan still took it. Yeah. So I wonder if that, along with the nerfing to Domitans and Ephlems with the latest update, made those aggro counters not seem as necessary. So
yeah, that could be.
Yeah, I think with the shakeup to Storm Coven and Pandemonium, it probably did quite a bit to this landscape where, you know, it's only 3 weeks lead time. So I could even see pivots away from Pandemonium and Storm Coven, just given like, hey, I don't think I have enough time to like reload mentally, you know, how I want to pilot this warband after I've been so used to piloting them a different way.
Right. That makes sense.
I certainly didn't expect the heavy investment in Grisel's Arenae instead to pivot that aggro option. But yeah, I felt it.
I mean, I like it. I think that's people being excited about the change. And I will say, having eventually played against them, just knowing that they might reduce damage by 1 really put a lot more pressure on, like, okay, I guess I need to make an attack that has 1 damage to spare. And just the extra mental tax that I was going through to make that happen was a lot of extra mental load on my side. So, but let's say we jump into these day 1 games. Skyler, had you lead on a couple of things. Brian, you want to start us off here?
Sure. So starting off with my round 1 was against Frank and his Grisel's Arena. I fought them twice this day, and the first match, as I had been prepping for Seismic Shock, I wanted to be more passive and sit back, score my objectives, and kind of like dare to have one fighter come and enter my territory so that they could be my spellcasting punching bag. And one of the things that I'd been encountering is that like the cards never came up in the right order for me, or at least the preferred order. So I always ended up having to kind of engage more than I wanted to instead of the passive. But in this match, I got all the luck. My cards came up and it was the perfect kind of like passive hand. And I'm just like, okay, so we're fine. Like, yay, my luck has been saved up for LVO. Like, here we go. But it was all in this match, and it was pretty heavy beatdown just in terms of like I had the cards and the dice on my side in this match. Frank did what he could, but his dice weren't cooperating with getting his ball rolling. So it was like he struggled to get the Seed Glory to get it going. And I think by the end of our second match, I had all 3 of my fighters and just Grizel alive, and I had Triumph of Paramountcy. So I just kind of like, I kind of danced around while he finally killed Lasavir and Vashtis. And then at that point, Vexmore was tooled up and just poked her to death because I could sacrifice both of them for 2 glory in order to get 3 and secure even more glory. So it was a bit oppressive. Frank was a good opponent, kept his cool. Appreciate that. I was, just trying to make it sporting, but, or try and make it a decent match for him, even though he was having no luck. But yeah, that was a pretty big game. Overall, they're pulling the glory differential wound up being, so it was 2-0 for me, 38-11. So yeah, that's my round 1.
I also played a Frank in my round 1, and I was playing against a Spike Claw Beastbound Assault combo. And I played against playing a Spike Claw on my day, but I realized I hadn't played against Beastbound Assault in quite a while. And so it was this uncertainty where I was like, man, I actually don't know. I tend to always play with, what do I need to counterplay? I was like, I don't remember what the big Beastbound Assault scores are. I don't really know how to go about this. I was like, I guess I'll just kind of stick to my plan. And then in that first match, Drom gets smoked on like his 3rd activation. I think I killed a guy, and then he had a charge and then a resurrected charge and killed Drom. I was like, oh, I am maybe in a lot of trouble all of a sudden, but managed to turn it around. And I think his deck was requiring a few things to kind of happen in the right sequence as far as getting particular upgrades out. And they never quite landed before I managed to farm enough rats to stay ahead of things. So I took it 2-0 after sweating the first game of the match a little bit, but that was a nice way to get my feet under me and get going. Skyler, how about you?
For my first match, I got to play against Brendan. Brendan was running Canaan's Reapers and Tooth and Claw. And out of the gate, I was like, oh boy, this is like I'm starting my day off with a favorable matchup. So I kind of felt like with that matchup, it was my game to lose. And the reason for that is because the Mortec are a pretty easy route to getting primacy from round to round. Mm-hmm. And I have multiple options for taking Kanan down in 2 hits, with Wallop and Headcracker both being able to offer me 3 damage. Wallop naturally, Headcracker when inspired, and Tooth Dagger is Killer Instinct. If I can't get Kanan down before he inspires, then Killer Instinct's going to give me Cleave and Snare, and a shot at Grievous. So a lot of tools for taking Kanan down. So it's a matchup I played a lot. So I was really comfortable going into this one. Still had a blast playing. Brendan was a very fun opponent to play against. And one of the things that was extremely memorable was something he brought to the game. He had a tithe counter stand. Yeah. This is awesome.
This is great.
Like it was about the size of a hex on the board, but then there's this pike sticking out of it, and anytime he would earn a tithe counter, he would slide a skull onto the pike. And the first board he presented had a block text, so he brought it in as the block text.
That's awesome.
It was like that extra just chef's kiss touch to the warband that now, like, anytime I'm playing against somebody who enjoys Kanan's Reapers, I'm going to bring this up. It's going to be a story I tell, and I'm going to encourage them to make one because it's awesome. But yeah, so I ended up winning this in 2 games, and one of the things I was afraid of was Hurricane Force and his ability to potentially like push me out. So I was making sure that was something I kept in mind with every round of play. But that's how it went down. And Brendan, shout out to you. I was hoping to grab another game with you the next day, but didn't get a chance to. But thank you for running and getting me coffee during day 2. You hero, I needed it.
Wow, what a nice guy. I got to play him at Rivals, and I thought he was super awesome. I really enjoyed meeting him. That was great. I think that accounts for all our game 1. So we were all with wins right out of the gate there. Brian, we'll go back around to you for game 2, match 2, I should say.
It had to happen eventually, and Skyler and I pair off again. He dodged me at Nova. At Adepticons, we've both played each other at both of our latest Adepticons, and Skyler's been in my pocket. But Nova, we didn't play against each other, and today in LVO, it was Thricefold Seismic Shock versus the Fort Krakas. This is a matchup we've played multiple times. Trying to see who can out passive, and it's like, again, we always have very tight matches. Depends on the card order in my experience whether or not I can dictate the engagement, and so it's kind of a 50-50 toss-up. I think I still give the majority of the time to Skyler because I am so card order dependent with my big scoring end phases. And in this match, I did not get that ideal card draw. My first match took the most ideal luck. I was proud that I tried to make several pivots, but then the dice didn't support my actions. Ultimately, I'll let Skyler chime in before I give the final results.
Yeah, so the game of chicken was real. We were constantly like, who is going to put themselves in a position that the other warband is going to be able to take advantage of. So much so that in one of our games, there was a center objective between us. Longboard both games, I believe, if I recall correctly, but definitely this one. And so there's this objective just over my territory into his, and we're like tiptoeing as to like who's going to grab it first, because like it's going to mean a world of hurt potentially for the person who then grabs it initially. And what that ended up allowing me to do was grab primacy off of holding 4, because I decided, you know what would be worth the risk here? Primacy. I've already pushed 2 fighters at the start of the game onto objectives, and spent one of my like stall turns moving onto a third, and then I was like, wait a minute. So that was a pretty memorable moment for me during the game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so 2 matches, ultimately, both matches kind of played out very similarly in my mind, in the sense that it was not optimal card draw. I needed to engage some, and Skyler's surprisingly passive, like even with 4 Krekkas and an aggro warband like Head Krekkas, the ploys to get primacy can really just fuel him. And so I was forced to engage. He was able to take advantage of that. And some of my big scoring to maybe save me didn't come up until they were like bottom deck. I managed to keep it close, I felt, but it was still 0-2 in Skyler's favor. Glory differential here was 13-26.
I don't think that shows enough how close those games were. Like, we were constantly reading each other's objectives and like knowing what was going to score if we couldn't get, that drive back off or similar.
It felt close for me because I had to fight so hard for every glory point. It was difficult, but it was a well-earned match. You are still to be determined whether or not you're in my pocket at Adepticon exclusively, but it is at least exclusively Adepticon at this point until we fight each other again in a couple months.
Broken the con level of that. I'm out of the con level pocket.
Yes, I'm not letting you out the Adepticon pocket.
While you guys were duking it out, and I think you might have been sitting right next to me. I remember a lot of pocket talk happening. I ended up facing against Derek, aka Captain Murderer, bringing the one and only Ephilim to this event. And I knew
notably he took last year's LVO with GSP.
Yeah,
so we all knew who he was.
Yeah. He made sure knew who he was. He was. I knew this was going to be as tough a match as I could face on the weekend. That it was a challenging warband and a great player. We sat down, and this was a pairing he had with Force of Frost, and I realized that although I felt comfortable into Ephilim, all my reps were into Seismic Shock and Fearsome Fortress. And so I think I made some key mistakes. I had some assumptions that he maybe had closing the circle, the hold 3 objectives. So I was thinking he was caring more about those, and I was worried about him having more passive than he actually ended up having. I lost the first game pretty heavily, to the extent that somewhere part of the way through the third round, I was wiped, and I just stopped. I just passed. I stopped showing any cards. I didn't want to give any information away. Glory differential actually mattered, but I didn't think that I had anything I could score anyway. So like I said, I stopped there. That first game, I just landed one hit throughout the game, which makes it sound worse than it is. Ephilim's defenses are just kind of absurd. If the Field of Change comes out, then they're almost all effectively on 3 dice because they're inevitably inspired 2 dice with a reroll. They can be real tough to hit.
Well, especially with all the defensive upgrades they have in combination with Force of Frost as well. Frostworm Cloak, Armor of Ice, and all of Ephilim's own defenses. Yeah. If you stack those all on one fighter, that feels insurmountable. And then if you spread that around, you can get some even worse combinations.
Yeah, what I found was that I could eventually whittle them down to just a couple of fighters, but then those 2 fighters would be extremely hard to shift. And Ephilim needs almost nothing alive, it feels like, to score shocking amounts of glory. And what was a huge problem for me was Spawn Maw, since I have 2 large fighters right out of the gate. So then there's somebody who's 2 dodge, move 5, 3 smash for 3 damage, which is really a pretty horrifying stat line to know is coming my way at some point. In the second game, I think I had the luck on my side and maybe played a little smarter and managed to pull that. It was a healthy win, but not as lopsided as that first one. And then we launched into that third game, and it was close. I think I was at most of my warband still alive towards the end of the game, and then all of a sudden evaporated down to just Gore Hulk. And I was in a position where I think at one point I had a lead of 5 or 6. I was feeling pretty comfortable. I'd almost killed Ephelum, and then Ephelum upgraded to a state where that wasn't going to happen. You know, and just kind of like you were talking about stacking the defensive upgrades. I was like, it's a fool's errand to keep going after Ephelum, and I made a really critical misplay here, and that was I had one of the refashioned upgrades in hand, and just totally forgot to play it. I had refashioned reactions. And I didn't see a reason. I don't know. I just didn't see immediately why I needed it, but there's no reason to save it. I had plenty of glory. It would have saved me from an Ephelum charge with that attack that for some reason Ephelum has, that is 3 smash at range 2. And I could have stepped away from that, saved myself from 2 damage, and kept the Gorehulk alive. The Gorehulk was eventually killed. And that was not the difference, but I was wailing away on the only other changer alive, and he had the ping back damage, and so it was kind of a race. Could I sneak the last little bit of damage through before he managed to ping me back? And the latter of the two happened. I think I had a route to victory if I'd managed to get the kill before getting pinged back. And then maneuvered for a tiebreaker, but I was up against it. And to be fair, like I still was playing it a little bit wrong, not as passive as I think might have been the correct choice. And I had some dice definitely in my favor. He missed some odds on attack. There's a pretty awesome picture of him hanging his head and me just leaning back in my chair and chuckling. I'll see if I can find it and throw it up at some point. But that misplay at the end cost me the opportunity to capitalize on the luck that was going in my favor. And Derek took the match 2-1, and well deserved. Played it well, and I was hoping I'd get another crack at him, because I think after later that day I was like, I think I know the adjustments I could make. Right away, I think I was telling you guys, like, I don't know if I could have done any better, but the more I thought about it, the more I wanted another shot. However, that put me in the 1-1 bracket with Brian. And actually, there were a number of the Madison crew. I was like, I think there's a really good chance that we're going to play each other. Mm-hmm. But we did not. Brian, who did you face in round 3?
I just had to double check you. I was like, as somebody who's played Ephelum a while, I'm like, three hammers for 2 damage on her staff. I'm like, normally the sorcerers or the frail ones are supposed to be a little less accurate when they're doing combat attacks like that, but come on, GW, why?
I mean, it gets to the point where whenever somebody reads off an Ephelum stat line, like someone from there, or lays a card down, I'm like, that sounds too good to be true, and so it actually probably is correct.
Yeah,
they're really good.
I also had to pull up the warband and go check that attack, and I was like, I guess for a warband who has everything, why not?
Yeah. Just feels like, doesn't even feel like a flimsy wizard sorcerer at that point, but nobody's ever described Ephelum as flimsy.
No. And I did manage to void curse Ephelum a couple times, but it just wasn't the hit that it would have been, because by the time I have void cursed Ephelum, I'm often up so close. Like, it's really a bigger bonus for putting Ephelum on 1 block instead of 2 dodge, because once the lines get tangled, that 3 smash attack is debatably better than the spell attack, unless they're trying to land some specific objectives.
Yeah.
Brian,
I'm just Ephelum, man.
Yeah.
All right, so my round 3, I went back against the arena. I was pleased. One of my stretch goals in our Dear Diary was that I wanted to play and test myself against other names in the space. So, like, I wanted to play against either Captain Murder or Zach Cachetta from Path to Glory, or any of the Underworld's Underground guys. I knew I was going to be playing Sleek Spoil in our Pink Slip match, but now I got to play against Fish Mode's Grisel's Arena.
Yeah.
And if the first game I had all the luck, second game I had at least some of the card draw that I needed, and dice weren't there, everything abandoned me here. Oh my God, it was so brutal. Against Frank, I seemed to have a crit in almost every roll. But here against Fish Mode, I rolled so many successes, but he would roll dodges, and felt like he acrobatic at least like 3 or 4, which when I'm trying to get successful cast for my surges, get that seed glory rolling. Oh, it was so brutal. And Grisel's, something I learned is I I really think that they're like a new Mollog, like spoiler warband. They're very dice dependent. It is very casino aggro. But boy, when they pop off, like Frank wasn't having any luck. Fish Mode had a really good luck. I was having bad luck. He was having decent, like he wasn't rolling super hot, but man, I could not get anything rolling. It was pretty disappointing because I felt like after 3 matches, I just wanted to play more games, really.
Yeah.
But Fish really took me out here. 2-0 or 0-2 for me. The glory differential was real bad. So 5-29 here.
Oh no.
It was savage. And that was like, he was all up in my grill because he's missile aggro.
Yeah.
Charging in. I had all the opportunities to try and get things rolling and nothing was cooking off. But I was gimping myself with that incorrect rules assumption on the damage reduction for spell casting. So I don't think it would have completely salvaged. Maybe it might have made it more respectable, but this pretty definitively took me out.
We knew that there was a chance that somebody 1 and 2 was going to make it into the day 2. But spoiler alert, that was the end of your Grand Clash run there.
And the start of my drinking.
Yeah.
And regarding that ruling, like we've seen that before, where something hangs out in the previous FAQ document that's been kind of like overruled by the entrance of a newer rule or even like a newer ruling, like in an FAQ entry. So I totally understand why at the event we were going with like an attack reduced to 0 was successful, because one of the things that led to the question was, well, do I get drive back still? Right. And it's like, well, how do you process that? Well, when you look through like the new rules, the way that an attack is worded, it's like if your dice indicated success, the attack is successful and you're getting access to that drive back. So that's the ruling that was ultimately run with for the course of the event, but not one that would be known to you if you didn't think to check in on it.
No, I mean, I would 100% gone with the way you were doing it, Brian. So I think that comes to me then, though. So I am 1-1. I'm facing somebody else who is 1-1. And I know that I've gotten, a tough game out of the way, but I'm also like, if I want to make it to day 2, I probably have to win this. And the poll was the other Drom player. And I described it as the mirrorest mirror match of all time, because we were both running Drom and both running Void Curse Thralls, which meant that somewhere approaching half of our decks would score without like really doing anything at all. I was like, oh, you've got a Void Cursed. I'll score Surrendered Will. Oh, there's 4 people with Blood Tithe on the board. We each scored 2 glory. So the difference here was going to be figuring out where the cracks lay, where there was some daylight to maybe get some progress in there. I think I'd been sitting close enough to, or maybe that he'd gone to 3 games with Zach Cassetta. I'm not sure.
And this is Aaron, right?
Yeah, this is Aaron. I'm sorry if I didn't say it. So, Aaron is buds with some of that Underworld's underground crew. So, Tucson, I believe. But he had, for starters, really nicely played painted warband. But I hadn't seen his deck, but I thought I'd overheard somebody talking about Reshaped Realm in his game. And I was like, because I knew Zach was running Hexbane's Hunters with Void Cursed. And so I was thinking, all right, Reshaped Realm, if that's in play, that is a huge leg up he's got on me. And it's really easy for us to all get Void Cursed if I'm not careful, because there's only 6 of us and 2 of them start that way. I didn't know if there was tipping point in play. I was worried about that. That was a surge that would be even more passive glory for him. But I decided that I would play as if he had Reshaped Realm, and I would refuse to Void Curse anybody else on my team, and really try to limit the deaths on both sides. See if I could score a lot without causing unnecessary death unless I was really going to benefit from it, because I wanted to keep the numbers up, because it's the smaller they went. And even if I can't deny Reshaped Realm, if I can delay it, then if it's in his hand, it's clogging things up, slowing things down. So that's kind of attack I took. I went extremely passive, and that ended up working out for me. I think, this was always going to be determined some by card order. And I think Aaron was very kind with how he described the game. But I think he maybe didn't give enough credit to some favorable card draw for me. There was one really amazing moment I wanted to highlight, and unfortunately he came out on the bad end of this, but it was in game 2. I'd already won the first game, and I'm holding Grim Satisfaction, which is a 3 glory end phase, which can either score if you have a huge pile of wounds and blood tithe on one fighter, or if 4 fighters have wound counters. And I'm examining the board, and I have some push tech, and I have Drom's Wound the Realm, where you can just nuke the what do we call it, the fearsome belt,
the fortress zone,
the fortress zone,
fortress territory.
There it is.
Where you could just kind of nuke through that if you're willing to spend the blood tithe off a Drom. And I was like, I think I can actually make this happen. And if I can get 3 glory off of this, and I'm already a little bit in the lead, then I'm in a real good spot. And on top of that, it would be all his fighters getting tagged, maybe one of mine. And so as I'm deliberating whether, like, gosh, would be a lot of resources to spend, and if he's got it in hand, then I'd give it to him too, and I'd spend a lot of resources for no net gain. And then all of a sudden I see him start to make like some strange moves. I'm like, I think he's setting up for it. So he spent a bunch of resources to ping a couple of his fighters so that it would score. And he was like, I don't know if this is the right choice. And then as soon as he got done doing it, I was like, I got bad news for you. Used push tech to send Drom into a lethal and his other fighter in, and then pinged them all again. So in one power step, he took, I think he might have taken 3 damage to Drom, 2 to the Gore Hulk, and 1 to his Herrick's. And then we both scored Grim Satisfaction. That kind of tipped that game over, because all of a sudden all of his fighters were within 1-shot range. And I was happy to just kind of sit and wait and say, if you want to come at me, I will maybe lose somebody if you charge them, but then I will trade you pretty safely. But it was close. There was just a couple things that went my way to kind of lock out both those games. And I finished 2-1, so I knew I was going to get through. And then I was real happy because Aaron was actually one of the 1 and 2s to make it to the second day. He went off to get a drink. He came back in after it had already been announced, and I gave him a thumbs up and a smile from across the room. And he was like excited. And then he came up and he was like, hey, just to be clear, that thumbs up was like, I made it to day 2 thumbs up, right? And I was like, yeah, it was. It'd be pretty rude if I was just like, thumbs up, hey, thanks for coming back into the room, sort of thing. So I was relieved to get another chance to get into that. I think I ended up with the 7th seed coming in, seeded just like a tournament bracket. And that just leaves Skyler's into day 1. Skyler, where'd you land?
Yeah, before we jump onto me, regarding your mirror of mirrors, I love mirrors in this game. As you were describing, like the heady choices that you had to make to like figure out how you're going to like counter the mirror scoring and, like find your foothold. I love that kind of play. I know mirrors are generally love it or hate it, but I definitely fall in the love it camp. I think they're so interesting.
Before I play them, I hate them. And then while I'm playing them, I love them. I played a lot of mirror rippas at one point and realized I actually did kind of love mirror matches.
Awesome. So my match 3 is against Jazz from our crew. She is also 2-0 at this point, and she is running Crimson Court and Force of Frost. And I am terrified going into this, except for, it was like there was a little bit of terror. And then I went, wait a minute. I was like, I had a sidebar with the judge going into the match. And I was like, so pretty much anybody that goes 2-1 is making it to the day 2 cut, right? And he's like, Yeah, and he's like, you and your opponent like are pretty much guaranteed for tomorrow. You're just playing for seed. And I was like, oh, okay. So like I wanted to also help Jazz out and calm her nerves. That we both ended up like walking into this nervous, and it was like, why are either of us nervous? First off, we're friends, and second off, like we've made it to day 2. Like this is just for seed. Let's see what we can do, sort of a deal. Like have fun, play your heart out. Let's do this. And so going into it, I knew there were some cards that I wanted to keep in mind and try to play against. I know that Jazz is a fan of Stranglehold and Glacial Cool, so I have a feeling that those have made it into the deck. I actually don't know for sure. And they have all objectives are held in one territory, a card called Death's Domain, which is very similar to Purifying Rites. It's the same as Purifying Rites from Wild Hunt, so it's a card I'm really familiar with, so I can see the signs very often. If somebody's like, I'm going to delve and then abandon this, it's like, oh, okay, well, you are trying to reduce the amount of tokens you're going to need to hold later for Death's Domain. So that's in play. So those were cards, kind of like the key cards I was trying to play around. But this is a really scary matchup for me. This is Elite Aggro versus Elite Aggro. But I'm playing Countermunch. I'm playing Hold Back. I'm also thinking I need to make sure that they don't get enough going, enough seed glory to get upgrades down and become even more of a threat. Because with Vampiric Might, it's a +1 strength or +1 damage or a +2 damage, depending on the state the vampire is in. That can threaten primacy, one-shotting of my crew really easily. So I have to worry about that. I really need to target anybody I see Vampiric Might come down on. And then she taught me that Ananias, I had no idea, has an upgrade unique to him called Ripping Claws, where as a reaction after a successful attack action, he can just tag on another damage there.
Yep.
So I had Ananias running around one-shotting my crew as well, because he had like Vampiric Might on, was inspired, was at 3 damage, plus this Ripping Claws, and I was so happy that Ripping Claws like prevented her from taking primacy off of me as I'm pulling guys off the board.
Yeah.
So this all boils down to I take the first game, and the second game is far more close. I get tabled, and we count up glory, and I end up winning this game 17-16. And the only reason I win this game is because Ananias was that menace, and he could not pull primacy off of me as he's taking me out. So I win by that spent primacy there at the end. And I think Jazz said something like, okay, I didn't need to play a game 3 anyways. Really, really fun time. Definitely one of the matchups I was the most scared to face throughout the weekend too. Just Crimson Court in general. And I know Jazz is super familiar and super comfortable on them as well.
Yeah. And that was our day 1. We had Skyler and I were... Skyler was 3-0, I was 2-1, and Brian was 1-2. And that meant that of our crew, of the 6 people competing, 5 of us made the cut for the top 16, which was pretty awesome. It meant, we made up almost a third of the top 16, which is pretty great. Somebody, just the numbers were somebody was probably going to fall, and unfortunately ended up being Brian.
Rip.
But Brian had to get ready for his Pink Slips game, which would be the next day, and we'll get to that once we're there. But instead, Brian had a night off and enjoyed it fully, I believe.
Yeah, one of the bright sides is if you get knocked out of the tournament, you're in Vegas.
Yep, and he definitely was. So we then went on to day 2, and then it's just me and Skyler reporting here. So I can jump in with my first, I think.
Go for it.
I was playing Bridget, also from Tucson, and Bridget was running Star Bloodstalkers with Daring Delvers. And this was a combination that I've experienced before with Phil. And so I was comfortable with the things that she was likely trying to do. It was, I ended up taking this, not to take the drama away, I ended up taking this 2-0. And in both games, we were either tied or I had some amount of a lead. But what I kept telling people afterwards is like, I've never been so uncomfortable while maintaining a lead before. Because Bridget, of all the players I played this weekend, she was the crispest, cleanest player. She almost never forgot any kind of reaction or anything like that. She knew exactly what she was doing, and nobody denied my scoring harder than Bridget had. I think it was we might have decided the first game on single digit scores like 9-6, and the second game was not much higher than that, because she would correctly identify like, okay, I didn't manage to knock out one of the big beefy gore chosen in the first round, and in both times I managed to snake clack trock. So a lot of her damage output was gone. And once she figured out that she wasn't going to get a kill, she did damage mitigation, avoidance, and then just wouldn't charge. And so she kept bricking cards in my hand. And I was throwing away cards that I would have previously thought were almost auto scores, which was incredible. So you got to take the warband you love. If Bridget was running something that we would, generally think of as top tier, man, I would expect her to podium. Like I was super impressed. Really scary. But I took that. And so then I was into the top 8. Skyler, how was your first round?
Yeah, so those nerves about vampires got to reemerge immediately. In fact, we saw the pairings before the next day. So I went to bed going, I have to fight Crimson Court again. First thing in an elimination bracket. Okay. So when I got there, I got to meet Jesse and his wife or partner, I can't recall, but 80. So Jesse and 80 sat across from me. 80 got to hang out, observe our game, as well as be, I think she affectionately referred to herself as token caddy for the match. And absolutely pleasant couple. Jesse was saying, Brian, I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, that he had only played like Nemesis for like two times
matches
before this.
in Nemesis prior.
Yeah. So relatively new, and I wouldn't have known. Like if he hadn't mentioned that, I thought his plays were that of somebody who is far more familiar with the game. And one cool thing that 80 showed me as well is we were kind of geeking out about the paint job on Crimson Court, and she mentioned she's getting into painting as well, specifically Underworld's models. She might have a painting history beyond Underworld's. So she showed me a Skaith where she had hand drawn the fur lines, and it looked so good. I know. She was like, "Oh, it took so long." I was like, "But the effect was worth it."
Wow.
Yeah. So jumping into the game. I had mentioned too, we were kind of both like trying to ease each other's nerves. He was worried that he was going to be an easy game. And I told him that I was super worried going into the Crimson Court, and, don't sell yourself short, sort of a deal. He was already delighted to be there for day 2. They actually had plans as if he wouldn't make it to day 2. So we sit down, we get into it. This is one of those like memory gaps. I know I took first game. I don't remember like how that kind of all played out. The game that sticks into memory for me is game 2, because we are playing pretty slow. So we're actually going to end up with a uncomfortable bump up against time if we're going to need to go to a game 3. And I cannot find a lead. I don't score glory in the first round. So I'm scoring, I think I get one end phase that gets me finally my seed glory. So like I don't have fuel during round 1 at all. So round 2 and 3, I'm playing catch up, and I'm trying to make it close, but I'm not able to like eke out the win. There was always enough of an opportunity from like a scoring standpoint for me to claw my way back and not put us to a third game. So I didn't feel the need to concede, but he matched pace with me. So even though I was able to like really claw back, I could not, while doing so, counter what he was throwing down. So he takes game 2. We kind of both celebrate a little bit, and we're like, all right, we got to quickly get into a game 3. But unfortunately, game 3 is determined by a dice down, and that game goes to me at that time. We were just both excited to have had these games together. He felt really good about the dice down decision. I wanted to see it, go to the end, because I think that he had a chance to take me, especially after that game 2. But all in all, that kind of progresses me on to round 2, and I feel really lucky to have gotten there and to have gotten a chance to play these games with Jesse and 80.
Yeah, I got to play Jesse on in the Rivals event on Sunday, and really enjoyed that game. His demeanor was awesome. Like you said, played like somebody had been playing a lot longer than he had, and he was so like something would go against him, and he would just have this take, instead of throwing up his hand, he's just like, oh, it's interesting, like, oh, okay, like it was, everything just seemed like it was like a interesting puzzle to him, and I really enjoyed playing against him. It was awesome. So I'm glad that was a good match for you guys.
Well,
yeah,
our next one. So yeah. Davy and I end up paired into each other, and at this point, this marks my 5th match over the Grand Clash, right? Mm-hmm. Of which I'm now playing a 3rd member of the local crew that I flew with, right? So I ended up playing more of the people that I came with than like new people, and I was really excited to play a bunch of new people. Yeah. So I'm glad I had the Rivals tournament on Sunday to help give me more of that experience. But going into this match, almost similarly to Jazz in my conversation the night before, like, hey, regardless of how this game goes, both of us get to go, on to day 2. Here, Davy jumps in quick with, hey, regardless of, who wins or loses this, one of us is making it to the semifinals. And like, that's an awesome perspective to go into the game with. And is really in tune with our team spirit across the whole event. And frankly, this was one of the most nerve relaxed. I wasn't sitting back relaxed, like holistically, but nerve relaxed games. It felt really comfortable. It was still really heady. And like, I think that we both played so well. But before I digress, any further, Davey, how about you going into this?
For me, we had played this exact matchup just once before that I recalled, and it was a matchup that I had won, but in so doing realized just how much passive glory you had access to in this build that you had, and that was really useful for me going into this. It was like, okay, I cannot just be totally passive. I cannot just sit back. I have to make sure that I'm scoring something, that I have some plans to disrupt or plans to improve board state while scoring what passive I can. Because if I totally disengage, I think Skyler just kind of keeps ahead and gets too powered up, and he's too hard to catch. I knew that at this point there were no easy matches available, and I was it was that mindset where I was like, I feel uncomfortable with my odds in this, but I know it is winnable, and I think I have a sense of what I need to try to do. But yeah,
same.
I would agree. It was we were actually speaking out loud a lot about like like, I think you have this, and so I'm trying to deny this. Like it wasn't a training game, but at times it felt almost like a training game where the thing we do, and maybe it's just habit at this point, where we'll talk out loud about what we're trying to deny or what we are suspecting and all that sort of thing. That was really fun.
It was really fun. When we would make moves, the other person very commonly would say like, "Oh, you're doing that because of this," and then like, "Oh, good move." Like just knowing what it added up to in the long run.
Yeah. And because we had a good sense of what the other was trying to do, there was this, we would have like a plan and a backup plan and a backup plan. Like you trying to score stockpile, I think, and I trying to deny it. I was like, I got this and this and this to try and deny it. And you're like, and I've got these 4 things to try to make it happen, or, whatever. And so it became, and this is what happens sometimes. It became less about, for me, like, I guess maybe I will not be able to deny stockpile, but I can force heavy expenditure of resources to make him do it. And that's going to have to be the win in this interaction rather than actually denying the objective.
I had 2 things I need to keep in mind, or that I was telling myself, make sure to stick to what you've already decided. And it was, I was going to not close the gap before you. I was going to spend that time drawing cards, and I was going to make sure I always had a solution for overhead smash in my hand. And both of those things I stuck to. I think it was our first game that started with you made me go first, and I drew a card, you drew a card, I drew a card, you drew a card. And I was like, all right, well, I've only got 2 activations left in the round. I have to like work on my setup a little bit for scoring. And you still took that first game from me.
Yep.
And then with overhead smash, I think that was some of my most memorable plays. Was in both cases I was able to use redeploy creatively to get out of dodge. Yeah.
It was pretty awesome, and there were a couple turning points that we discussed a few times, and it was one of these things was like, this decision is kind of deciding the game, and even after it had happened, you're like, it's not clear if this was the wrong or right decision. Like it was playing the odds sort of thing. In the second game you had, I didn't even see it coming. You'd put Mason's Great Hammer on Daco, who had Void Cursed. So Daco did not have an attack until he picked up a hammer. And then all of a sudden because you gave him +1 dice, he was flying in on the Gore Hulk, who only had 3 health left. And all he was looking for was 1 crit. And that did not happen, which meant that the Gore Hulk survived, and not just survived, but survived with health enough and in a position where I was able to get off Grim Satisfaction and start generating some healing again.
We did the math afterwards too. And because it was a choice I made to forgo stockpile. So I had to weigh the risks on my side. And I was like, okay, if I make this play, I'm giving up 2 points. But I think if I don't make this play, grab the safe 2 points, I lose this game. I was like, and this is round 2, but in round, like, I'm like, I will not be able to catch up if I don't make some significant ground right now. And I really need that Gore Hulk to die. And afterwards we're like, that was an 8-point swing. If that attack goes through, that's 8 points in my favor, like from what I'm denying from you and what I'm securing for myself.
But I did end up taking that match 2-0.
He does.
And
and for me, when I realized that I'd lost, I do concede game 2 once I realized that I cannot outscore him at this point. So once the math clicks into my brain and I'm like, oh, no, I've lost this one. I get this big smile on my face and look up at him and say, congrats. And I put my hand forward for a handshake, which you refused. Because you got up and gave me a big hug.
And then at the same time, what happening behind us is we're about to go on lunch break. We learned that Jazz had made it into the semis as well.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. And as I was walking, I didn't know exactly what the matchup would be. Or I guess I did. But I remember I literally got like a lump in my throat when I figured out that Jazz had gotten into the semis. It was such an awesome story for her. And such a tribute to like her. She's been playing this a long time, and she is playing a warband she loves and is comfortable with, and that goes a long way. And so that meant that I was going to play Jazz in the semis, and then Derek was over in the other semi, and he was playing. Was he playing Jonas? I think he's playing Jonas.
Yeah. So round one, there was actually a couple really interesting upsets. I know round one, Alex had to. Maybe I'll be stealing a little bit from his diary contribution, but. Round one, Alex went up against Derek, and I think he took the first game, and so we were all like, "Oh," because Derek had been undefeated at this point, and it was like if Kagura can just run in and smash on Ephraim, and it would be a massive upset. Meanwhile, another upset was Damien, also Canadian, was playing Crimson Court. I believe Fearsome Fortress or
Force of Frost. Yeah,
another FF.
Yeah,
but he played against Jonas in round one. Jonas was playing his Wraith Creepers, and they were beautifully painted, like very Blanchitsu.
Yeah.
And the Wraith Creepers in an upset because Jonas was one. I think he was the 16th seed, and Damien was number one at this point.
Jonas was the 17th seed.
17th.
And Bill could not play on day 2, dropped out of the 16th seed, and so Jonas made the bracket by virtue of that. And then goes to take down Damien in round 1, which holy cow.
Which were breakneck slaughter of amps, by the way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. So there was some massive upsets. I believe there was one more. I think it was
Aaron took down Zach.
Yes, Zach
got to see him the next time. So a couple of the Vassal Discord's favorites were knocked out in these elimination rounds here.
Which, by virtue of just seeing a really complex pool, it's not just always like I saw this at Worlds where you don't want to see, like me personally, I don't want to see like this separation of oil and water. Like there's this elite and then there's everybody else. But instead it's very mixed up. Like those upsets really show how dynamic this game can be. And it's not just, the established names that make it to the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Jonas is an awesome story. He ended up getting bumped by Derek in that in that semi, and I'm up against Jazz, and Jazz was actually super anxious on this, and I couldn't figure out why. I was like, I don't we've played each other a ton of times. Like we have good games. They're often crazy, and she was just kind of anxious about this specifically. I think she told me she was like, well, you're kind of like my mentor, and I was like, oh, I don't know about that, but Jazz, the last time I played against you with this deck, you beat me with this Crimson Court Force of Frost, so like this is totally. And what was the other? She was like, I just don't want you to be disappointed. And I was like, I don't know how I could be. Like, you're in the semis. One of us, it was the same sort of thing that I told Skyler. One of us will be in the finals. That's an incredible thing for Madison to be able to say here. So let's just play this thing. And Skyler, you're saying you weren't sure whether she had Glacial Cool or Stranglehold in there.
Yeah, going into her game, but I frustrated her because I assumed she did because I know she's a fan, and I kept denying them. She was like, "Skyler, stop it."
Well, I knew that she had Stranglehold in there, but I got my head too wrapped around the is it Death's Domain? I don't remember the one hold all in Vampire Territory. So we had this longboard situation, and I accidentally set up Stranglehold to be scored by holding just a single objective, which she did, and jumped out to this early glory lead, and she tabled me running away in the first game. I was like, okay, well, let's focus up. Second game, I'm going to play it real clean. And second game, I got an early lead. Her play style, she's real smart about working towards what she can. But once I had denied enough, then she can like shift gears, and it's almost like she says, okay, Like if you're going to deny that, then I'm going to the high risk, high reward level of play. And it's bomb a charge in, bomb a charge in, bomb a charge in. And if they land, then which, they did, all of a sudden I was like, I'm in a really scary spot. All my guys are like one hit away from dead, and my game plan will fall apart. And I panicked in this second game. I had the Gore Hulk, was still relatively healthy, and I was trying to chase some more glory because I didn't know how much she could score. I didn't have a good sense for that. I still wasn't sure if she had Cold of the Void, the nobody standing next to anybody, and I was worried that was going to go off. So I was like, I think I need a little more glory. Charged in and ended up in a punch out with Duval, and Duval put that vampiric might on. He was bloodthirsty and landed. I think he had the +1 damage game. Because he was bloodthirsty, he had +1 damage. Rolled that crit and just did the remaining 5 damage to Gore Hulk and just smoked him. And I lost 0-2, and I did not get my chance to attempt to take down Derek. And Jazz went and represented us. Gave him a little bit of scare in their game 1, but then Derek did end up taking it. I think you'll get to hear about that on Path to Glory. But I know at the end of the game, Jazz just looked completely relieved. I wasn't even that. I think she was relieved that she won. I think she was relieved it was over. But I was really happy to see her back in Madison, and she played my son. I don't know. It was really awesome that, like we really tried to. I'm kind of rambling here, but we try to pride ourselves on like how we conduct ourselves, how we present our community to the greater Underworlds community, like our little pocket, what we show. And for Jazz to be the one to represent us in the finals, I don't think we could ask for like a better representation of our community to go forward and share her kind of awesome attitude and love for the game at that highest level. I thought that was kind of amazing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So say we all.
Yeah.
One of the unplanned themes of the Dear Diary episode, which I also really loved listening to after the fact, was I noticed everyone spoke to, and we didn't talk about this, we didn't plan on this, that they weren't there to win the tournament as a goal. Like, obviously, that would be awesome, but everybody spoke to how they wanted to just go and play against, different people, meet different people in the community.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be more proud to be a part of that crew.
Yeah. I'd be lying. I want to be clear. I'd be lying if I didn't say I also had some disappointment about losing that semis, because I didn't think I would be favored in the finals necessarily, but I thought I could represent. I thought I could give Derek a real strong showing
and make those adjustments.
Yeah, to not get a chance to put those adjustments into play. And it wasn't even on my radar, like being in the finals or maybe winning the finals, until all of a sudden it was really close, and to have it like surface and then get shattered was just kind of like a little bit of whiplash. So I was really happy for our community and like a little disappointed for myself, but I
wanted to test my deck against Derek's Ephelum so badly.
Oh, yeah. That was what I was thinking, not to wander too much, but when you and I were playing, I was like, I absolutely want to beat Skyler here because I want to keep advancing. I think Skyler's got a better chance against Derek than I do. Like I think his build has a better chance in that matchup. And so that will be my silver lining in this game, is if Skyler advances, not only will we send another Madison person to these semis, but I think we send a deck that's got a better chance of pulling that win. But
I'm really glad I didn't have to go fight Jazz a second time.
Well, so after that, it was a long day because it was 4 rounds by the time you include the final. And then we got to go up and play the Pink Slips match, which will be on, as we said, be on Alex's channel. We had Derek up there, we had Aaron up there, we had the Underworld's Underground crew up there, and man, the environment in that room, like kind of the excitement, the joy, I don't know, it was awesome. I think I remember it was a match for the ages. with just some spectacular sportsmanship from Mike. Great commentary from Thomas and Fish. I was feeling a little. They were like, I was like, man, these guys should actually do this. I'm gonna maybe step to the side and let them take the lion's share because they're doing an awesome job of this. But I remember, I think I turned to somebody at some point. I was like, man, I would lose every game in an event if it meant that I got to like be in a room with this kind of energy. Like, this is really awesome. It was just a super fun time. And for all the hype that we put into it going in, it lived up to it somehow. It felt impossible that it would, but it did.
Yeah, the energy was absolutely electric. I got a little victory right out the gate when I revealed to Sleeks Bowl what I was putting on offer. I put my Dread Pageant up with all the bells and whistles, their Golden Demon card, promo cards, tokens, everything.
Yeah.
And he brought what he was known for, his Iron Claw, Iron Souls Condemned with Tooth and Claw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but it was nail biter. It was not a shutout. I don't know how I kept my cool, but I was internally screaming and crying.
We were talking to each other. We could see hands shaking on both sides. It was just like adrenaline flowing. It was such an awesome thing. So
yeah,
I tried to join in on the commentary, but was doing so much tech troubleshooting while doing so.
Yeah.
I just kept pausing and like really relying on other Mike Fish Mode at the time.
Yeah.
So thanks for picking up my slack there.
Yeah.
Luckily, I think Alex was reviewing the footage. It looks like we got it all. So despite the technical difficulties, we should still have the entire sequence.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. I'm still jonesing from that. Is great.
If we were able to capture half of the energy in the room, I'm telling you, the video is going to be more than worth the watch.
Yeah, it was when it was done. Also, Underworld's Underground was like, "Hey, we got to make this a regular thing." I'm like, I don't know how we can. Like, this feels impossible to follow up, but it may be a regular thing. We'll be in consultation with them. We're trying to decide, is it a convention thing or is it specifically a LVO thing? There was talk going into this of possibly doing like a team event. So maybe LVO is the Pink Slips event, and then somewhere else it's a 3-on-3 team, matchup or something like that. So lots of possibilities there. We'll look into it. But
given everybody's different lifestyles and how frequently we can make conventions, I feel like it should be at least a convention thing. But I don't want to. We're still ironing out the details. We don't exactly want everybody saying like, "I want a pink slip challenge you." Like, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But I wanted to start this off with a bang and make it a memorable thing. I think everybody in that hotel room is going to talk about it.
Yeah, and maybe everybody in the adjoining hotel rooms, because we were very, very loud. So. Well, all right. That was the Clash. I do want to touch on the Rivals event just because it was cool. I know. You guys good to just cover that real briefly?
Oh yeah,
real quick.
I can cover my stuff real fast, like.
Yeah, and this is not to dismiss any of the players who were playing the Rivals event. I had an awesome time, but the focus was this Grand Clash. I think maybe we just do. Each person runs through their 4 games and then go from there.
Because I'm sure that Underworld's Underground will have this more in depth.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they should.
Skyler, why don't you start us off then?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. I brought Skaith's Wild Hunt with their faction deck, and I did this simply because it's a warband that I've always loved. It was my first love, how I learned the game. So every once in a while, I do really like an excuse to take them out, look at them. They're the only warband I've ever painted. So I really tipped the decision over from Soul Raid with Toxic Terrors into just bringing something that I wanted an excuse to put on the table and look at and just be happy to be playing games with Skaith's Wild Hunt. Sad note though, there's some battle damage from previous where I have a pin in my archer's leg, and so she Althane. Ooh, I hope that's right.
Yeah.
But I went to go pick her up one time, and I think because the base is magnetized as well, every time I do that, if I don't pick her up from the bottom, it puts pressure on that pin. And so I literally just picked her up to move her from one space to another, and she fell apart during my first match. So for the rest of the day, I just got to be sad about the thing I was looking at on the table. But I got to play Aaron. The same opponent that Davy spoke to regarding the Gorchosen mirror there. Aaron coming from the Underworld's Underground's entourage, and he fought Crimson Quartz, and I think was playing Breakneck Slaughter, if I recall correctly. He won that handedly. In fact, at the beginning of the game, he said something like, "Oh, Skate's Wild Hunt. Well, I'm going to feel really bad if I lose this." Touche, Aaron. You should. Touche. Then up against Alex from our local, and he was bringing the Paths of Prophecy plugged into the Profiteers, Thundrix Profiteers. And this is something that kind of came out of nowhere for us locally. It was a huge surprise when he plugged this in and just started consistently scoring double digits with it. Like consistently somewhere between 10 to 15 points every game. And we're like, whoa, what is this?
My favorite anecdote is I asked him, like, why are you, you seem to be enjoying this even when you're losing. He's just like, yeah, I really hate Caradron and Age of Sigmar because they shoot me. And so when my own guys die in Underworlds, I don't really care when they die.
Oh, that's funny. By the end of the day, the card with Sleek Distracted on it, I think it's called Easily Distracted, became Alex's least favorite card in the game.
It's pretty rough.
It's so bad. I'll push one. You push anybody else too. I hope this doesn't hurt.
What could go wrong?
Alex and I had a good game. Was able to take that. I will actually highlight one moment real quick where I threw on Althane, who had a Daco stand-in. I was like, I'm just going to grab another archer and put them on the table so it's not just a leg. I was able to toss on knockback on her, as well as her ability to take 2 arrow shots. And then I ran her next to an objective. And as I did so, Alex went, uh-oh. Because the objective holder had 1 health left. So pinged him down with the arrow shot, and then reacted and shot the one standing next to this objective with knockback, dealing 1 damage to him and sending him straight into a lethal. And I was like, he took both models off the board, and I was like, yeah, but like, that was cool, right? Like, as somebody who is known for enjoying knockback, like, that was cool, right? And he's like, it would be a lot more cool if I wasn't taking 2 models off the table right now, Skyler. So that was that. And then my next game is with Bill. Bill is playing the Arena, Grisel's Arena. Bill just went online at some point in time. We had so much fun with this game. Like, it was like dice back and forth where I actually thought I was gonna take it, but then they've got some really scary Voltron potential, and so I should have realized I don't have much experience against Arena, so I guess this is me learning. Take her out early, don't let her become a problem late. So I ended up falling to like just combo, just absolutely like, all right, we're going to hit you, and then we're going to kill this person next to you, and then later we're going to activate, hit you again, finally take you out, kill this other person next to you. Like, whew. But we had an absolute blast playing those games. We were laughing quite a bit. And my last game here is Chris. Chris is the TO, so I've landed myself the buy. Chris is playing Gnarl Spirit Pack for the buy. And I just wanted to just touch on the fact that like Chris was an awesome TO all the way throughout. He fought for prize support for the event when it wasn't first given, and made sure that it happened. And like he was saying, like, you know, if he hadn't taken up the mantle a year ago to run this, there wouldn't have been Underworlds at LVO. There
Oh,
was
man.
no other volunteer doing it. When he had asked, like, what is this, like play support documentation for Underworlds at LVO, internally, with Frontline Gaming, they were like, what game system now? What's an Underworlds? And he was like, oh boy, that's a bad start. And he's been playing the game for a little over a year, and so in that year, made sure that we had LVO Underworlds last year. It was back to do it again this year, implemented the things that he thought he could improve on, and is looking to continue to do that in the way that he runs the tournament. But I thought the tournament was really well run, and like it's always nice to walk away with like areas that you can improve on as well. And like he was excited to have those conversations with people. Like Davy already spoke to one where like maybe it could have been a more flexible cut, stuff like that, where really polish it and make sure like there was that glory kind of contributed to your tournament points thing. Kind of maybe rebuild that a little bit. But anyways, just wanted to say double thumbs up to Chris. Had a lot of fun playing him in the bye as well. So there we go. Over to I'm going to throw this potato to Brian.
I'm only recalling 3 matches, so I don't know if I'm forgetting somebody or if I just blanked out. So my first match that I recall, I think this was my first, was once again against Fish Mode. So my terror from day one came back, and not with Grizel's Arena, but Velmorn's faction deck.
Nice.
And who are you playing?
So if you listen to my Dear Diaries, I did kind of pull an audible. I did not bring the Dread Pageant, even though I had secured them in the Pink Slip match. I instead decided to bring the Thricefold Discord purely for paint. Because there had not been a price support for paint during the Grand Clash. So we did it on the Rivals event. There was actually more people in the Rivals event as well. So I brought the Thricefold. I went hard in the paint on them. Painted, went full, expanded my painting techniques for gems, and realized that there was 50 some gems on the Thricefold Discord, 30 some on Vexmore alone. So I just brought Thricefold with Breakneck Slaughter. I just went aggro instead of the passive that I had been doing. So for my round 1 against Fish, this was really memorable because I started off second activation with Devastating Charge with Vexmore, charging into enemy territory to take a stab at the king, and swing, hit, kill. 4 damage, kill Velmorn, second activation of round 1. Swing for the king, you better not miss, and Vexmore declared himself the new king. But that didn't work out. Because there was a couple critical errors, but also Jedrin did his father proud and managed to make up a lot of losses. I had a critical move decision in the end with Vashtis, my one remaining fighter. I didn't anticipate a double push and a range 2 attack action being put on Jedrin to suddenly threaten Vashtis, and Vashtis died, making my hand unscorable and his scorable. So he managed to win that one despite the king going early.
Well, he came in with an intimidation buff, though. He's literally wearing a Burger King crown.
A bit of that,
which is
the
fantastic.
the bling wasn't exactly distracting ostentation to me, but the Jedrin the Bastard came out of nowhere. I thought I put him in a corner, but he suddenly was a threat. Round 2 was against Damien, so again, I'm excited because I get to play against another person I've already played against, Fish, and he showed me twice that he's formidable. Damn you, Fish. But playing against Damien, Canadian, seen him at multiple events, seen you guys play him at the events, especially at Adepticon. So I finally got to play against him. He was running his Crimson Court with Breakneck Slaughter against my Thricefold Breakneck Slaughter. And we had a lot of the same cards in hand, but where the few cards where we differed were duds for me, his were wins. So we scored 2 of the same cards in the first round, but he also had Rapid Strike. So that kind of tipped things. I made a critical dumb error with a charge with Vexmore. So I was suddenly down to just head Vexmore, and instead of sitting and turreting, I tried to make him more defensive by getting into cover. But then that just meant that his 3 vampires could dance around me, and I would have to chase them down. That was really dumb on my part. So lost that one as well. I hope to give him a more sporting match in the future. But it's rivals, so I wasn't exactly sweating it. I'm here for paint. I hadn't practiced this much, just Breakneck faction deck Breakneck with Thricefold. So going into game 3, or at least the game that I think I only remember 3 because I think I just got knocked out early, was a bye against the TO Chris. He was playing his GSP. Really liked how he handled the buys, because you could either take a tie and not play the match and lose and earn a tie, or play the match and beat him and earn a win. So it's either you're tying the TO in the bye or you're earning a win. So I really liked how he handled that. Playing against GSP, I did finally remember to plunder. And this was consequential because he had his faction deck GSP, which cares about destroying objectives. So once he did that, I was like, oh yeah, and plundered. Jazz had also, so we brought some swag to share. We had stickers for What the Heck's Just Happened at LVO 24. Carrying on from our Adepticon showing last year, had similar stickers made. And then this year, Jazz also, because we've all forgotten plunder so many times, even when it's beneficial to us, she made buttons that said, I remember to plunder.
Yeah.
And we were handing those out to our opponents who did remember to plunder. At least I was handing them out only if they plundered. And despite having a visible, tangible award for doing so and earning a button, so many of us would finish our match and go, I forgot to plunder.
My time remembering was when I laid it down playing Bridget, the Starblood Stalkers player. And I said, I'm going to put this here. So if you remember, you can earn it. She's like, well, I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm probably not doing a lot of killing. And I'm frequently like in a spot where I'm not necessarily going to do that. And I, in our second game, I managed to kill, I think Wachi. And I started looking at my card, and she was like, do you want to plunder? And I look at the board. I'm like, yeah, I actually really do. That's really helpful. Thank you. And she's like, well, then I'll take this.
Excellent way to earn it. Reminding your opponent.
Yeah. It's like, God. It stings even more that you had to remind me.
I plundered against Brian to score Dead Sneaky, and he threw a button at me.
Yeah, I had remembered multiple times, like, okay, this would be really good to plunder, but if they're on a feature token, you can't. Yeah. If you're not adjacent, you can't, and so I think that's why we forget a lot. But
you can if you're not adjacent.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't have to be adjacent. I feel like I've had this go back and forth.
I can't remember if it used to be that way or not. But you can.
Okay. Whatever. It's something. But so. Yeah, ended up playing against the GSP. Should have taken out Kira a little bit earlier. She went blender mode on me for a while, but I got lucky and managed to hold it out. I did win that 1-2-0. Only win for the day, but I think those are the 2 games that I had, or 3 games that I had. I don't remember a fourth. If I do, I'm sorry if I forgot. I just feel like I got knocked out because of my early 2 losses, and because of the single elimination, we actually didn't see a whole bunch of who was ranked 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th kind of stuff. But sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Davy.
Oh, yeah. I had originally wanted to bring Headsman's Curse as hey, I think they actually can really compete. And then I just decided I wanted to go full fun on this day. And so I took Eyes of the Nine, which I really like the conversions I've done on them. So let me show them off a little bit.
Fun or torture?
And well, obviously they don't have their in-faction deck. I can't take that because it's too small. So I took Malevolent Masks with them, ran all Malevolent Masks with the Eyes, and I had so much fun at the Rivals event. I was so glad I did it. I just running through real quick. I played Chris in round 1 with Drom, and I know Drom really well. I got to longboard him, which meant that I got to sneak the blue into his backfield, get some seed glory, and then just score fistfuls of glory once I got a couple masks out. And Chris was awesome. He was returning to the game, I want to say, and he's a veteran, so we got to talk some military stuff afterwards. It was good to kind of catch up. We had some common threads. That was really awesome. Game 2, I got to play Brendan, the Canaan's player. I also won the roll-off and longboarded him. And he said, hey, I'm really sorry. I have this strategy that I use. I want to try out if somebody longboards me. And I was like, no, you don't have to apologize. I longboarded you. Like, if it's beneficial to you to do anything in this situation, you should do it and punish me. Like, I'm the one who should be apologizing for this. I won that one on a 50-50. I surged into I had 2 objectives left to surge. One of the objectives would be dead and one of them would win it for me. Surge into the one that won it for me, which is awesome. In the 3rd game, I got to play Jesse, who did go on to play in the finals. And I managed to get it down to a 1 attack. If it hit or missed, I would win it. And I had a lot of things in my favor on it, but managed to miss. And he did have that Undying Evil. He was running that Crimson Court. And that was an awesome game. I love that all these players, I will also say I won the roll-off and longboarded him here. All these players, like, nobody got antsy or perturbed that I longboarded them. They were just like, masks and eyes are so weird, especially with the blue horror, that I'd kind of explain it and then start doing weird stuff. And then everyone was just like, man, that is so interesting. That is so weird. Like, what the heck is going on? So everyone would just seemed like pleasantly delighted for the weirdness that combo was. But Jesse bumped me there, so I was 2-1, and then I got to finish against Bill, who brought Aaron and tell me if you're noticing a pattern here. I won the roll-off and longboarded, so went all the way to the back again. And what was exciting in this one is I got the blue horror in the back. I managed to put the Frostbitten Veil on, which is the reroll as many dice as you want. And the blue horror just like machine gunned down to the Aaron who had stayed back to maybe try and take care of him. So the blue horror was like back there scoring glory for wearing a mask on an objective or being alone on an objective or just killing people. And meanwhile, Vortimus and his 3 stooges were hanging out in the other end of the board, trying to hide from Grisel, who was just whiffing until the last round when Grisel killed everybody. One fighter wiped out all 4 of mine that were in my territory for some pretty spectacular carnage. But
the blue horror is like, look, guys, wasn't that cool?
Oh. Yeah, I'm the only one here. So I did end up winning that 3-1, and I just had so much fun. I did end up winning that one. I had such a blast playing that combo that it had me cooking with masks as soon as I got back, and I've built a few things that I'm pretty excited about. Grimwatch that has won, I think, like 16-16, 15-15, and 19-19. So apparently you need tiebreakers to score to win with that, but. It was really a ton of fun. Really enjoyed meeting all 4 of those folks. I remember thinking, like, I don't know if I really want to play in a Rivals event after playing Nemesis for 2 days, and I'm so glad that I did. Had a really good time with it. You can probably hear more about that the finals in that where Sleek's Bowl got to play against Jesse in the finals there. I got to watch a lot of that. That was a really fun game to watch. And then that was it. That was kind of the end of the LVO experience. We're going to send it around the horn here for thoughts on overall things before we wrap up. We're kind of going to bring it to a close here real quick. Skyler, you have just anything overall that you really wanted to touch on.
Yeah. So one of the things that has emerged as my favorite part of these like events is actually a little bit of the lead up. And so we'll travel together. We'll be excited. We'll be talking. And this might be, the day before we travel. This might be during travel. We've arrived very often. We're in the hotel room and we're going through this, but we will do last minute checks with each other on like group deck analysis. Like we'll sprawl our deck like on a table and talk through like, this is to help score this. And I have this card in here for this reason. These are the cards I feel really bad about. Does anybody have any suggestions here? Sort of a deal. And we'll do similar with boards where it's like, okay, like once we've got the deck locked in, then or maybe, that person wants to hold their deck knowledge, to themselves, which is totally fine. But weirdly enough, that was none of us. We were just so open with what we were each bringing, so that when we would play each other in the tournament, it was less about like surprises and more about out piloting each other with the knowledge that we have of both ourselves and each other. But it's all of that like pre-event last minute tuning, doing board drills and saying like, having multiple eyes on, hey, I think this board is bad for me for this reason. And then an opponent, somebody coming from the other perspective being like, well, actually, I think that's good for you because, here's how it's going to be bad for me as your opponent. I would hate to see that board across the table. Like, I think this would really do well for you. Or finding that last card where it's like, hey, like I think that there's, something better for this slot, and people rationing through it and going, you know what, actually, like this is the card that should be in that slot. And people to go, you're right, that's perfect. And then to hear like during the event, after the event, that card swap was perfect. Like like that saved me in this game. Like that was like so clutch. Like all of that like camaraderie that comes into traveling with a group and being able to do this level of last minute stuff together it emerges as some of my favorite moments of doing this. So I really wanted to highlight that.
And for me, I kind of helped a little bit. I remember, especially with Bobby, discussing some of that. I did not put my deck and boards out to the group, and that was less about. It wasn't about trying to hide. I'd been playing that locally for long enough that you guys all knew what was in that anyway. For me, I've never been one like I could never cram for a test. Like it would just kind of stress me out. And so any last minute changes, I was like, I don't want to have to. I know what I've got in there. I just want to leave it be and feel comfortable. And my deck maybe had been refined for a little bit longer than some of the others, but I wish I had done that maybe a little earlier. So when we're still a couple weeks out, I on my lead up, I'd had my wife had gotten pretty sick in the household, and the kids had a couple snow days, so a lot of my preparation days just kind of evaporated, and so I ended up, some of the things that I would have hoped to have practiced or tested against, I just didn't have the time, and I decided I'm not going to stress about it. I'm going to set that to the side. I'm not going to worry about it. I've got lots of reps with this. Anything that I haven't seen, I'm just going to adapt on the fly if I can. And so I went into the event feeling pretty calm. And if I had picked exactly the right thing, if I had picked Ephelum Force of Frost to practice against, maybe I've got a better chance there. But I was pretty happy with that as far as going in with the mindset. But you what we really highlighting was that team idea, and we went in. It was not a team event, but it felt like it at times. Where we'd check in on how people are doing, and it just felt good when we'd. It was a bummer to knock each other out. We kind of recognized that at one point, like, hey, it's gonna happen. We are gonna knock each other out because we make up a significant portion of the field. Maybe 20% of it overall, or even more, 25% of it overall, something like that. And then going into day two, a quarter of it. So we we knew that was going to happen, but it felt great to be part of that. And then it felt great to like kind of expand that. There were people that we met, and I'd be super excited to see again. So it was a fun experience to be all part of that. Make that happen.
Absolutely. One thing that was new to prep this time around that I like to impart to the listeners is we realized that because we're playing Nemesis, you have your Warband deck, you have your universal pairing, that an interesting test might be to take a moment where you play a game versus somebody else, rivals, and plug in your universal pairing to your Warband, just your universal pairing, as a test to see, is there anything you've been overlooking in there? A good way to like sift and see, are there any hidden gems that you haven't felt you've needed, but like, so you've gotten your Nemesis deck, to like 95% of the way there, and you're like pretty confident with it, but it's like, let's do one check real quick. Let's play one game where I just use my universal pairing and see if a card pops out. And it's like, that was so cool too, because either A, it'll give you the confidence that, nope, there aren't any cards in here I feel I'm missing.
Yeah.
Or that one card might emerge. And for me, that's actually what led to my final swap. So I ended up swapping, like in my deck, for example, in Dear Diary, I mentioned I had only swapped to Great Stomp for take your positions. But last minute, I swapped out something more Gorka Morka, no, for Underground Fortress. And I really hated the other card. And I thought, hey, if I'm never scoring this card and it's only 1 point and there's a lot to set up, I'd rather take something that still requires a bit of setup, but would pay off a lot better. So if I'm throwing it away, I'm still throwing it away. But if I'm able to make it happen, at least it's far more rewarding. So
that's a good thought process. The last thing I wanted to say, and this is, I don't consider myself a particularly talented painter, and I really kind of had to rush the paint job on my Gore chosen, but I did this Void Curse theme where they were kind of the Void Curse is taking them over. So I did these kind of star patterns that were starting to wash over the models, and then painted in some constellations on them, and really had some great advice from my son, who first looked at it, and I could tell by his facial expression, I was like, "Ooh, I didn't nail it. He's not loving it." And he was like, "You really need some more color in there." And so I did some blue and purple washes, and it really made it pop. And I got a couple votes on the painting thing, and I was just really, given the quality of the paint that was out there, I was just really pleased that there were some folks who thought highly enough of what I'd done there. It was really motivating. But Brian, as far as painting goes, I think you got a memory here.
Yeah, so like I said, I called an audible to go for painting in the Rivals event, brought the Thricefold Discord, and paid off. I was up against, there was some stiff competition. There was Giannis, who had brought the really cool Wraith Creepers that were very Blanchitsu, also brought Magore's Fiends to this. And it was one where, like, they look good, and then you get in closer and you're like, oh, damn. It got really good. Riptooth was a standout. Looked really cool, really feral. And then also had a display base. There was a Crimson Court player. Was it Aaron? He had done extensive non-metallic metals.
Yeah, that was Aaron.
Crimson Court. Yeah. And his first attempt, and I was like, oh, I can't even... I can't be bothered. I was like, I see how much effort it'll take, and I'm not ready to jump on that. And he did it across the entire warband, and there's no shortage of metal on those Crimson Court figures. So he got my vote for that reason. But it was really close. It was 11-12 for me for Thricefold Discord. Both members or people who were participating in the event and passerbys could vote. So I was proud to take that. Giannis got the second on that with the Magore's Fiends. So I was proud to take home the Golden Demon card for that. So it set out or achieved the goal that I set out for Rivals there.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's going to about wrap it up. I'm going to send it around one more time. Anybody got anything else they want to hit before we close it out?
Well, it's just always great to go to these events, travel, meet people.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to throw your hat in the ring. Some fun upsets, like Jesse only had 2 games of Nemesis prior to this, and he performed really well, playing especially in the Nemesis or Rivals event, getting second place. So
Yeah, I think just about everyone I saw that was playing, even if they were losing their games, they were really enjoying meeting people, seeing play styles they hadn't seen before, all that sort of thing. I think it was awesome. So I'd recommend it to anyone. Even if you don't think your goal is to win it overall, just playing the games in that environment is great.
I think one thing I want to toss in here is sometimes you chat with people so much before you met them over like the Discords, right? And that was the case with us and the Underworld's Underground. And so as we're meeting these individuals and finally getting to put a name to a tag or a face, it was awesome in the sense that we just like picked up like we were old friends and like no time had passed since we'd last seen each other, but it had this also like, oh, this is what this person looks like. It's such an interesting interaction that is spawned from meeting somebody online and then finally getting to see them in person. And they were splendid fellows. It was so great to be able to like just pick up those conversations like we've always known each other.
Yeah.
I think Fish Mode was talking about that, where it's that parasocial relationship where I get this when I walk around at a con and I see YouTubers that I really enjoy and I've been watching for over a decade now. And I just get a giddy smile and look at them like, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, they don't know who I am. And I'm sure they get that all the time, where it's just like, he's a fan. Like, it feels weird in the moment, but it's not something to shy away from. Being able to interact with people. Like I went up to Steven Box at Worlds and I was just like, I really appreciate what you do with Vanguard Tactics. And he just had this really heart melting look, just like, thank you. So it's really fun to interact with people. And it's even more fun when you interact with them and you realize, yep, we are friends. Like, this is great. So love the Underworld's Underground guys. Loved our moment at Nova with the Battle Mallet guys as well.
Yeah. I mean, on that Thursday, I think you guys were all walking around on the strip, and I know Sleek's Bowl, Mike was getting in, and so I was the only person around to try and meet him, and managed to meet up with him in line to get registered. And I was like, all right, that I know him online. That's all I know. And I think we probably walked around, chatted for like 3 hours before he was like too hungry and had to go get some food because you guys were struggling to get back. And it was kind of amazing, 3 hours could have been a really long, uncomfortable time, but instead it was awesome. Like we just kind of, like you said, picked up, like we're chatting with old friends. I was really, really enjoyed that.
He looks so much less like Sleek than I thought he would. Less feathers, less beak.
Yeah. It's all a lie, folks. All right. We do need to close it out here. If you want to get in touch with us, the best place is the Discord, and there is a link in the show notes here. You can also email us, whatthehexcast@gmail.com, or at WTHcast on Blue Sky, or the site formerly known as Twitter. All our content's on themortalrealms.com. Thanks to the Mortal Realms for having us on the network. We coming up, hopefully, gosh, I would love to talk grave robbers, but we're not sure when that's happening. So we'll be in the mix trying to figure out what's going on. You will be hearing.
We have no clue what the universal deck that should be coming out around the same time.
That's right. I wasn't even thinking about that. Okay, content surge coming up at some point, but we will be coming at you with what we can. You will hear from our other folks too, either after these credits or as a little get you by a mini-sode, depending on how things shake out. Gents, this is actually going to be a pretty challenging flavor text quiz. But are you ready anyway?
Bring it.
Okay. I will give you a hint. It is a objective from a Universal Rivals deck, and I faced this deck at some point this weekend. And it has been selected for its quote more than anything else. It is an end phase. I'm going to keep it. Is an end phase worth 2 glory? Here you go. Everything is so much easier when you work together.
Complete harmony.
Ooh, good guess. I did not see Paths of Prophecy. I did not play against that. It's Beastbound Assault.
Oh.
Yeah,
double O
for me on that.
There's cards in that deck with names.
This one was effortless teamwork, and that's because I felt like
a good one.
And your recommended listening, we're gonna go with Heaven or Las Vegas. That's from the weekend off of Thursday. That's that House of Balloons trilogy. That was how he made his initial splash. For What the Hex, I've been Davy.
I've been Brian.
And I've been Skyler.
We all got to see a preview of the Grave Robbers, Zondara's Grave Robbers.
Hello everyone, Bobby here, back from LVO, with no gold but a cold. As a reminder for everyone, I took Draper's Wraith Creepers with Toxic Terrors to the Grand Clash, and for the Rivals event, I played Draper's Wraith Creepers with just the flat Toxic Terrors deck. One of the biggest things I underestimated heading into LVO was just how many Crimson Court players would be there. While I knew the warband was strong and Force of Frost just elevated that warband, I didn't expect to see, I think there was 3 total. I didn't expect to see that many. One of them, which actually was ran with Breakneck Slaughter, and then the other 2 with Force of Frost. I played a lot against Jazz locally here, and she runs that warband often, so I did have some practice going into it, but I did not expect to play versus the Crimson Court for 3 straight games in a row. One of the biggest things I think I learned about my deck and warband was probably just how much I relied on Draper. Even though he's one of the most accurate fighters in the game, 3 dice, looking for smash with a reroll, trying to get objectives scored just off attacking alone can be tough sometimes. Things like Mass Poisoning and Carve a Path, when those opportunities were present, sometimes Drapers would just straight whiff and would leave me in the dark with 1 to 2 glory just sitting in my hand because I can't hit an attack. While I had practice and my practice went well with the combo, especially while he was inspired, it just didn't seem to go my way at LVO. Going into LVO, I had pretty high expectations of myself with a soft goal of day 2, which I achieved, and a more difficult goal of achieving top 4. That obviously I did not succeed in, finishing top 16, only losing out to second place, who was Jazz, my first game of the day. But it was no easy game. I think we finished, she beat me 2-0. It was tight. I think the glory differential at the end of those 2 games was like 4. It was very close in both games. But while I didn't achieve my hard goal of top 4, I did have a boatload of fun at LVO. One of my favorite opponents was Chandler, who was my first game of the Grand Clash. Chandler came in as a slightly new player to Soul Raid, which was a very difficult warband for someone who was slightly new to the game. After a couple of reminders of the Shoal token and kind of charged out rules when having the fish available, dunking him in a lethal, things like that, to try and give him a little bit of information on like how he could really use the fish to manipulate charge and all that. He came out the gate swinging game 2. He really opened my eyes at how quick some of these people at events can really learn when you're teaching. I think Skyler actually had a similar experience at Nova where he played a slightly new player who came out the gate swinging in the second game, and this was very similar to that moment. So if you're listening, Chandler, shout out to you, bud. Good games. Another favorite moment of mine was in the Rivals event, actually. Both Sleeks Bowl and I were 2-0 going up against each other. He was playing Zandai's Truth Seekers with just their straight Rival deck, while I played Drapers with just the straight Toxic Terrors deck. And the very first activation of our game, he runs in with Doraz, and the guy's on 2 dice, and jumps right in the face of the drummer and rolls 2 crits. And I picked up my dice and closed my eyes and threw them very, very lightly into 2 crits to double crit defend, a double crit attack for 3 damage, which was kind of insane right out the gate. We both jumped up and we high-fived each other and we were screaming, and I think we might have been the loudest table at the event that day. It was a super awesome moment. And while I was actually watching Trace and Jared play at Nova, they did pretty much the exact same thing in the middle of their game, and they did the same thing. They jumped up and they cheered for each other, so it was really reminiscent of that moment for me. But shout out to you, Sleeks Bowl. That was a fantastic game, and you're a really fun opponent. So what's next for me in Underworlds? Well, Adepticon is right around the corner, and I will absolutely be going to Adepticon. And then in the next month or so, I will be practicing a few different warbands, kind of, dabbling here, dabbling there, trying to find something that really fits my playstyle, something that is very flexy, allows me to hold objectives and be aggressive when I want, or be aggressive and hold objectives when I want, things like that. So I'm going to be juggling around a few warbands here and there to see what is competitive for Adepticon. But one final shout out from me, I would like to thank Sleeks Bowl for the wonderful gift of Sigmarite he gave me, which he cursed at the beginning of our game. But I would like to say, with the travel and the journey, when I got it back here in Madison at our league night, I rolled 7 crits in a row against Phil. While he wasn't very happy about it, I was greatly pleased. So thank you for that, Sleeks Bowl.
Hello again, I'm Alex, and I brought Cogger's Ravagers with Breakneck Slaughter to the Nemesis Grand Clash, and I also brought Thundrix Profiteers with Paths to Prophecy to the Rivals event. A highlight for me was taking a game off the eventual champion and how I almost did it twice. It goes like this. I win the first game with a surprise dive onto Aphelum mid-game, and it cripples him. Game 2 was much closer. I wasn't really able to get to Aphelum until his score was too high to catch. So we go into Game 3 with only 20 minutes left. I give him first activation, and he goes on guard with a silly changer. And then it's power. I have the cards in my hand to make Kagra lethal and fast. But of course, he had time freeze. Well, I dive anyways. I get a crit and a success. He gets a crit success. So I can't drive him back. The game goes downhill for me from there. But it was still pretty close. But he ends up winning. And then moving on to the championship and winning. So it's great. Congrats. I had fun in the Rivals event, but the cards really made me want to make a Nemesis deck with that for them, because I think it would be pretty fun to take locally. Next, something I learned about my warband was actually, I kind of owe credit to Fish Mode a bit, but I had the opportunity to meet the Underworld's Underground crew, and Fish Mode, like I said, is also a fan of Kagra's, and he challenged me to a Kagra's off. So we had similar decks. Mine was Breakneck Slaughter, and his was Tooth and Claw. And the game begins, and it's a bloodbath. The irony was that each of our fighters die in the same order for each of us, which is pretty silly. But eventually, it ends in a duel of Razix, and his dice eventually get the better of me. But in the last activation, Fish Mode moves on to an objective for probably an end-phase desecration or something, because why not? He then looks at me across the table, and I have a big smile on my face. he calls me a madman and delves. He thought I had absolute desecration, which is the 4 glory, 4 desecration, and it would have given me the win, and he didn't want to risk me having that silly card, so he delves. And it was really fun. I couldn't have been happier that he thought that, because he doesn't know it yet, but my current championship deck has it. So I don't know. We'll see. That was really fun. But next for me in Underworlds is finally getting my whole collection organized and ready for paint and display and play, because I own everything, but I don't play everything, so I feel like I should broaden my horizons in the game and just start playing all of the things and not just Kagras, as much as I love them. But I think with that, I would just like to shout out What the Hex and the Underworld's Underground crew again, because they gave me the privilege of recording their Pink Slip game that was entirely too much fun, and it must happen again. It doesn't have to be a Pink Slip game, but some kind of podcast or something battle would be really fun. Thanks again.
Heyo, I'm Jazz, and I took Crimson Court to the Grand Clash. I made it to day 2, and that was super exciting. One of my opponents brought the Loon Court with Path of Prophecy, and then with my pairing of Force of Frost, I ended up charging into his territory for Abyssof's Avalanche, and I pinged everybody for a damage, including myself. And then he, in that same power step, he played Healing Spores and just heals all the damage that I just did, except for myself, because I pinged myself. That was super rude, but it was also a really cool play, and it was like the highlight of my day. Later, I made it to second place, but my games that I played against Derek are a blur. It was super exciting, and I got all caught up in the moment. But I think that Force of Frost ended up being really powerful and fun, but I almost wish I had more time to tinker with other deck pairings. I still feel like I need to tweak my deck a bit, but it was super fun. And I think in the future, I'm just excited to prep for Adepticon. I enjoyed going to the events and just having a lot of fun. And I guess in the end, I would just like to shout out Davy for being an incredible mentor and friend, and he doesn't get that quite enough. But thanks, everybody. Bye.